2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. Didn't mean it to come to this, but this is my only real choice. Things ain't working out the way we talked about. Not gonna sit here at night and hold my dick. Gonna hit the town, drink that Kentucky Brown, and fuck another chick. It's not that I'm not into you no more, it's just the way things are now. I think that I should score with another girl. Think that I'm giving this a pretty good twirl. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. Remember those good old days when we would get fucked up and we would party tough and we would say how we wanted each other for days. Remember those golden moments when we would lay in bed. Never enough can be said how we mistaked the booze for romance. I know this ain't what you wanted to hear, but these are the breaks in life, my dear. When you fuck around, then came back to town. This is my way of letting you know that the end is near. The end is near. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. Situation is beyond repair, and there ain't no going back. The memories fade to black. Just wanna hit the sack and go on a fucking tear. Your excuses quit working a long time ago. Never been one to look back and say I told you so. Just looking ahead to the nights of different treatment, where the other girls lurk. This is my song of endearment. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. Wipe those tears, have a few beers, confront your fears about being alone, and don't come knocking, 'cause I'm not at home. I'm out sleeping with women other than you. Oh my fucking god. It's all happening, I guess, a little bit. Welcome to Exeter Media's new kind of digital format release thing that I'm starting. I actually recorded on a cassette tape, so it's kind of a fusion interview, analog and digital. And it feels fucking rad to get this up and going finally. Anyway, that track that you've heard, opening the first two parts of the interview with Joe Medina is called Sleeping with Other Women by Pie Grinder. It's a local San Francisco band in the late 2000s. A couple of Derelicts and Grundle Pigs. Great fucking song, though. And the birth of CurseRap, which I am calling these digital release series. CurseRap and Exeter Media production. So we're up and good. In a moment, you're going to hear part 2 of my interview with Joe Medina about his new record as merch. And it's going to be 3 parts because all of them were really good. And they were all, nearly an hour long. And I don't know, I just wanted to split it up into 3, kind of the tester ones. I had never planned on releasing this interview as one of the digital releases, but there's so much good stuff in there. When I'm not out of my fucking mind and making myself laugh, or I don't know, getting weird about cassette tape theories, and generally lamenting the loss of the artist and devaluation of art in the world. So yeah, there's a lot of other stuff to talk about real quick. Obviously, a lot of you know that my novella, Skullbird 77, my new one, was supposed to come out on October 3rd, and it did, silently. I thought it was in poor taste, and my distributor came around and agreed with me to really push this down people's fucking throat all week right after the tragedy in Vegas, and then, with Tom Petty dying. I don't know. It just felt offensive, trivial, I don't know, and just sort of, I don't know, narcissistic, which, people can accuse me enough of that, although I would say that I'm not a narcissist as much as a self-deprecating isolator. So, anyway, so yes, it came out silently on the 3rd. Pre-orders were sent out. I didn't really want to post a lot of stuff, so we are re-releasing on the 10th, which is Tuesday. So, come next to Here Media. We got all the purchase information, where it'll be sold. You can order it from the site specifically. I'm gonna be giving away deals with. We're doing 2 different covers, 2 different formats: white, black, one white cover, one black cover. So it'll be, you can get them signed. It's $13, 2 for $20. I mean, this is really a release for my hardcore fans. And for me, it's nice to pursue this other thing other than, I don't know, some trivial, status in my head, or any fame, or just all the superficial gratifications, which you'll hear me and Joe talk a lot about, or at least me really gear up on it. That had come to sort of dominate a couple years of my life and put me in a really dark place, which kind of led to this route I chose after I decided to walk away from a 3-book deal for $150K that was offered to me, and put out this last book on my own, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but it just felt like the right path to get there. And I don't know where I'll end up. I got a 4-book distribution deal. I can opt out after the second one. This is our 4 release. This is the first release. And yeah, we'll see where it goes, but this feels good. It also allows me the fucking kind of life space to, not let the chaos fuck up everything. It's good right now, and I don't know. I feel good. I feel very alive, and not nearly as depressed and cynical. I didn't write for a year, and it's kind of brutal. And so, no, this feels good. So, anyway, this is the last final of The Burn, so that means that I'm fucking done writing about that asshole Jason Myers. Although I do appear to finally be having lots of fun at the end of the book, so who knows? Maybe future Jason will lighten the fuck up. But all joking aside, I started this particular ugly and fascinating introspection period a couple years ago, and it was absolutely worth it to do it. And to go about the way I did, regardless of what anyone else thinks or says, and regardless of whatever kinds of, again, superficial gratification I failed to receive, because fuck all that. I mean, as you'll hear shortly in part 2 of the interview, and you heard in part 1, I learned a lot this past couple years. The best thing I feel like I've taken from it is having it be reaffirmed once again that the best way of living and being is through how you value your time and your relationships. And I've always attempted to put a premium on making sure my life is spent doing what I love to do, which gives me more time to enjoy the people in my fucking life, which is all that fucking matters as, the lights go slowly, grow slowly dim out on all of us. It's the scars and the bruises, the experiences and the stories. It's art over comfort, aptitude over positive thinking, and of course never having to put on pants before noon. unless you want to, which is fucking stupid if you ask me. But anyway, yeah, so these are going to be a series of onto the interview, the Fusion Baby that we created, I created. This is going to be a series of releases. People, I don't know, they're going to call it podcasts, whatever the fuck. It's not. I'm interviewing people and editing them and putting them out on audio because, I feel there's some people that the structure of writing it and going back to those tapes and sort of constructing a larger point that you feel like they represent, you go in feeling that they sort of represent this, and you build to this sort of, breaking point of, maybe they don't represent it based on the interview, but there's this tension, I guess, constant tension, and some people I feel like are better covered like that, and there's some people that, you just want to fucking talk to for 3 fucking hours, because you enjoy their company, they're doing really cool shit. I only fucking interview people that I like what they're doing, and so if I'm interviewing you, I like it. That doesn't mean, I'm not going to ever bring you down or talk shit. That's not my purpose. I will, however, be always honest about what I think of what you're making and putting out there, and if I liked it or not, but I, know that I always enjoy or find whatever the person I'm talking to very interesting, and I'm intrigued by it, and I feel like there are people who are putting some really good stuff out there at a time when a lot of it's fucking garbage, and, I don't know, fucking assholes pushing play on a computer. It's not art, it's art. Those are producers, and art is Trump's producer any fucking day. Anyway, so these are just gonna be, it's the CurseRap series. We'll see where it goes. Anyway, go to the site executivemediasf.com. I'm releasing book trailers on it. You'll see the link to the YouTube page with all these fucking cool trailers on it. Ted Mater, the sort of cause of most of my fucking plight, filmed it, helped me, did the editing, so wasn't the cause of this plight. And then also all the information on the new novella will be up. It's available everywhere fucking online pretty much in the next week, and then slowly go in stores. And I'll have all that information on there for you. But October 10th is the re-release, and the book is out. Good luck really finding anything on it right now. We put the brakes because, again, I felt like it was not time to hit the gas pedal on. I knew a lot of people who were affected by the Vegas thing, and I know a lot of people who were affected by Tom Petty. In fact, there is a great part, I think, coming up in part 2 of the interview where me and Joe touched briefly on it. Also, my first radio interview, side note, was for Exit Here in 2008. Yeah, 2008 or 7. And it was a 2-hour interview, and we spent almost all of it debating. I had posted something on whatever social media, maybe it was MySpace or something, that I was, jokingly talking about why Tom Petty is better than Bob Dylan when it comes to just industry standards. And that's what we ended up fighting about. He was just an hour and a half, and neither of us budged. I was talking about industry standards, and he was talking about career. So, anyway, side note, R.I.P., and to all the people who were affected by the tragedy, who lost people. I have nothing. I can't even imagine the unthinkable fucking heartbreak and devastation you're going through. So here is part 2 of my interview with Joe Medina for merch. So what was the process? I guess this record, were the songs, as far as like content wise, lyrically and stuff, done, a while ago, or were you, obviously you probably tweak it out of the way, but like, what was the creative process?
Sure, okay, so,
goes into making something this big?
So I really like writing songs, or like whenever I'm going to work on a project, I like to go somewhere else, right? So for this one, I went to Guatemala and wrote a fair amount of the songs in Guatemala. So I wrote Ten Quetzales, I wrote Marriage, and then bits of other songs.
If you would have been in the 80s, it would have been like a Rage Against the Machine record, probably. Sorry. Central America in the 80s.
There definitely were a few AK-47s and mini machetes spotted along out in there.
This whole region.
So I wrote some of it there, and I really actually feel like some of those songs, like the very like romantic kind of vibe to them, wouldn't have turned out the way they did if not written there.
Was it like some like sweet girl that you were hanging out with there? Like,
well, sure, yeah, it was my girlfriend at the time, but it was also just like, you know, like writing songs with like a fucking volcano in front of you,
right?
You know, and the people, and like riding scooters through like, you know, foresty hills.
Experience.
Yeah,
I mean, it's changing literally. Like again. I think it goes back to like life is about experiences and stories, and if you don't have that to draw from as an artist, then your art doesn't grow.
Right. And then another big thing for me there was getting to meet like coffee farmers, right? And then getting like taking into their home and being shown all kinds of cool stuff about how all that's done, and just spending time with all these people, and like fireworks going off like around the clock at all times, and just all these things really created a vibe which translated to the initial songs. Yeah, and then from there, after some of the songs actually go back a long time.
Well, right.
According to the doctors, the initial like lyrics of that song go all the way back to like when this betrayal was being written.
Okay.
Actually, even before that.
Cool.
And then like Two Hearts, that was written in like maybe like 15, 20 minutes, just the initial like bits of that song, and that was you know, when my girlfriend at the time, shit was falling apart, and that writing that song, I had it like when she came in the door, and that probably gave us another 6 months, you know. Right. And then
when art prolongs your misery.
Yeah.
And that's good. Just kidding.
That's a good one. Glad we have on tape.
Yeah. I tattoo that on my leg.
And from there, after writing all this stuff, it was like, you know, I really want an orchestra. And I was probably high, you know. And
it's great.
Yeah, and so
pretty much how that goes.
Yeah, after checking into other checking into like San Francisco Symphony, to like the symphony in my hometown, to like whatever else, I was like, I couldn't.
I'm glad you didn't go. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't afford that shit.
But also too, it's again, you got out of your zone that you were comfortable with.
Totally, yeah, absolutely.
It's huge.
And so figuring out a way to do it, and then being able to afford it. Thank you to crowdsourcing for that little chunk of the cost of the album, because it actually ended up at the end costing like 6 times what I got crowdsourced for. But anyway, after that, it was like, okay, now how do I arrange stuff?
You know, it's because when you're putting that much together in your head, it's like you can do these things for the minuscule amount. You know what I'm saying? Live this way, but in reality, it's like $2. You know, like, or whatever it is.
Of course.
It works.
And so after doing that, I wrote basic arrangements for the songs. Like, here's kind of what I want the violins to do. Here's what I want this to do.
Now, so how does somebody who's not classically trained do that?
So I'm telling you that right now. Everything from me hammering out little motifs on the piano or guitar, or even in some cases making vocal sounds with my mouth. And I just used fucking like Audacity program to go ahead. Yeah, exactly, totally. Yeah. And so just using that to use that to break down all these tracks of what I wanted the orchestra stuff to do, and then from there, for that, sure,
just in general, I don't know. That's how I'm using to transfer the tapes to.
Yeah, it's easy. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, I feel like if you give me 10 years, I could then make this into something that the orchestra can work with. But maybe I should get somebody to hammer this out in a better way than, like, that has way more years on me.
But yeah.
So what I ended up doing is I asked one person who's damn, I'm not going to throw in here, but and they actually didn't get back to me because, you know, like, why would they? Because they were, like, that big. But then my second choice...
Email, bro.
Yeah. Well, my second choice was this guy named Richard Hieronymus, who worked with everyone from, like, he did, like, Roger Corman films. He fucking, like, worked with, like, the Wrecking Crew as one of the staff writers for years. So, like, you know, like, all, like, tons of the 60s shit that we haul on every day. You know, and...
Interesting fact, if it wasn't for Corman films, it probably would have been the 70s filmmakers.
There you go. That's true. Yeah, he,
Scorsese,
Peter Bogdanovich.
Who's the dude who wrote, Apocalypse Now? Milich? No. Whatever.
Like, who wrote it or directed it?
Well, no. Coppola also, too.
Right.
With Corbin. But who wrote it? It was John Milius.
I was going to tell you who wrote Hearts of Darkness.
Conrad. Yeah, it was based. Yeah, but the screenplay was John Milius.
Right.
And then also De Palma, I think.
There's tons of it. There's Joe Dante. There's fucking Ron Howard. Just not that he was a 70s guy, but I mean,
like came out of the B films.
Right. And so Richard Hieronymus came out of that too. And he also did all the Wrecking Crew stuff. He was one of their staff arrangers. And so I was able to track him down to an island off the coast of Washington. And then another composer that lived on the island he lived on, her name's Alex Shapiro. I hit her up asking if she knew him. And she was like, yeah, it was right down the way for me. And I was like, great, if you get this out to him, I'd really appreciate it. And then she did, and then he hit me up and he's like, hey, here you got work for me. Because I basically pulled him out of semi-retirement. He's like in his 80s, you know. And so then he heard this Betrayal, he was down with it, and then we got to work. I showed him everything I had, and I was like, on this song, I need to make sure that the motif the strings do was like right, and I was like, on this one it needs to do this, and he just took what I did and just made it 10 times better, right?
Interpreted it and did it,
yeah. And so I did the basic arranging, and he did a lot of the finessing. On some songs he didn't have to do much. On some songs he did a lot more, right? And then from there, after we got all that, he likes to do it all freehand on paper, and so we had to take that and take it to transcribers in Seattle. They transcribed it and then had all the sheets for all the individual players. Took that to fucking Prague and did it with the orchestra.
You should also note once again that you're doing this without, any large support, any advance, any financial thing. You're just doing it and making it work.
The only money I got for this record was I did a Kickstarter campaign for the cost of the orchestra, and that campaign money came in, I think, 2 days before it flew out. So I already had the tickets to fly out.
Right, but still, it's just like... Yeah. That's covering nothing. I mean, it's covering a lot, but it's not like...
Right, there was still all a slew of components after. Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't mind saying it just like on tape. The record ended up costing about $30,000 to make. That was my last figuring it out. It's been more since I figured that out. Right. And that's so... a sixth of that was what was covered by the crowdsourcing.
Assistant to that.
What?
Damn, Mr. Winnipegs, you hired an assistant today.
And anyway, so after that, brought the orchestral stuff back, then recorded all the rhythm tracks. I recorded, a lot of people would record the rhythm tracks first, but I did the opposite because I wanted sort of the drummers, the bass, and all that stuff was actually reacting to the orchestra instead of the orchestra just reacting to the time that was kept. So I feel like I would get better performances out of people if they were like having to like
rigid.
Yeah, exactly. And so then did all the rhythm stuff, added all the guitars, added all these other things.
Now, was there anything like were you listening to anything in particular, or reading anything in particular, or watching that was like sort of kind of, I don't know, I feel like when you're out in like nowhere fuck you land art world like that, sometimes, you know, like some of the best things I've found is, you know, like other people's art to kind of keep me like
totally, yeah, so
sane and also motivated.
Yeah, so as far as what I would listen to, I mean, there were definite like touchstones to pay attention to as far as like how arrangements went and all that. I know the question you're answering. I'm gonna do this in two parts because I know what you're at.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as far as like what was being listened to for like musical perspective, listening to like Harry Nilsson, a little touch of Nilsson in the night, like Gordon Jenkins, like arrangements on that, and going for that on some things, and then a lot of like Mexican rancheros, like Vicente Fernandez, things like that.
Cool.
A lot of like Jacques Brel, so like French chanson kind of music, you know, and basing things off that. Scott Walker's first 4 records. All these kinds of things, and just taking that and being like, and not like trying to sound like that at all, but just being like, oh, okay, so
it keeps you fresh,
and people that like even like and the people that used orchestras or whatever else like understand like how it can actually make this work and how can make this make sense of what I do.
Right.
But as far as like keeping me sane, what really helped with all that, because again, there were lots of times when I get like super stressed out and freaked out, I get to the point where I just like can't do anything. I just kind of collapse.
Yeah. Like
actually literally physically just collapse and like pass out. Right. Like for like days. You know.
Right.
And
usually happens to me after just the vendors.
Right. Well, yeah, there's that too. But
right. He's not nearly as physical as you know, put together a 65-piece musician band for records.
Well, yeah, but you also like, I mean, you know, I've read some of your rough stuff, which is like,
right. Well, you're in here with his fucking demons, man. It's 4 walls of bullshit. Your worst self, you know, trying to get out of that. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, so listening to or watching like documentaries or of like really, really ambitious albums. Like, I mean, you know, people could feel how they want about Bruce Springsteen, but that documentary on the making of Born to Run.
Yeah, it was how if you don't like Born to Run, you don't like music.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you don't have to like Springsteen, but you kind of have to like that record to actually consider yourself a music fan. Now, can you be a music fan and not really have listened to it? Absolutely, but if you listen to it, you have to like it.
Yeah, like I have this thing that I do if like somebody's just like, oh man, fucking Bruce Springsteen, what? Like, actually, I ended up having this argument with people during the making of this record, and I'm just like, look, if you don't understand Springsteen, like as far as like why he is at the place he's at, 1, listen to Born to Run. 2, watch that band's set when they went to London for the first time, like the Hammersmith or whatever that was, or the Odeon, whatever it was. Like, that's an amazing live band, and that's an amazing fucking record. And there's a documentary, I think, online that you can watch of the making of that record, and that guy put himself in the fucking ringer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, also, too, Patti Smith wouldn't even have made some success if she hadn't given her that song. Yeah. Right. It's also, too, I mean, even though it's on that record, I'm on Fire. I consider that one of my 10 favorite, best, I think 10 of the greatest songs ever written.
It's a fantastic song.
Right.
And so watching the documentary on that would always chill me out.
Right.
And be like, okay, I'm doing okay. Because I couldn't look to...
Did you watch Me Petty? Did you see that documentary?
That 4-hour documentary?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Write It Down a Dream?
Yeah.
Dude, there's some like petty in some of your lyrics. Like, just the way it sounds sometimes, a little bit.
Sure.
I got a little petty for... No, just like... No, like, you know. I was like,
I heard that from somebody on one of the songs from the last record, too. Sure.
But yeah.
And then listening to the Beach Boys Pet Sound sessions, like just like all the recording sessions of that, just like, and listening to all that stuff, and just the studio banter and everything else. It's just like anybody like taking on something kind of beyond them musically.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it would chill me out and calm me down, and because I couldn't necessarily
inspire
me, and because I couldn't necessarily look to my peers playing music because they weren't doing things in the same way, and I couldn't, and so I couldn't look to that. So I had to look at people.
But also too, it's that's the thing. It's like that's why you keep I posted this thing on Extreme Media the other day, or I've been online the other day, where it's like, as I'm like going through and doing all these like last minute edits on the novella, where it's like keeping my heroes close to me, you know, where it was like my go-tos, because I'm like, this is when I'm at that moment where I'm like, what the fuck did I do? What am I doing myself? It's like, these are the guys, this is the art that made me want to do it.
Sure.
And so having that, like, just being able to like do that, I think is relevant. I hate it when people are like, oh, dude, I don't listen to any, or whatever when I'm doing this, or I don't read anything when I'm like, it's bizarre.
Oh,
it's bizarre that you wouldn't read while you were writing.
And a couple other people that I think about a lot when I was making this record. Thought about Orson Welles a lot.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the guy who fucking took on a lot, like, just in case.
Yeah, and every fucking movie he ever had to make, right?
Right.
Because he had to, like, fight the studios or go find funding somewhere, like, whatever he had to do. And so I thought about Orson Welles a lot. And then, as far as literature, thought about Susanna Clarke a lot. She wrote Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Okay.
I've
heard of the title. I don't know.
Well, so it's the only book she's written, but she spent 10 years on the fucking thing.
Awesome, that's fucking rad.
Right, and so it's like I would think about like how long this record was taking me, and I'd be like,
there's comfort in that. I knew that, like, signing the contract, I would be pigeonholed into the next 3 years of my life having these 2 books, where it's like, I don't know, like, I felt like some of those ideas before hadn't really been flushed out enough, but I was on such a, tight deadline. And part of that, like, draw to walk away was, now I can let this stuff breathe. It's responsibility, like, oh shit,
right.
You don't got a real job, and like you got all this time, but like, yeah, it's I think getting there where it's like, I wish I, with Blaze, where I had like 2-3 more cracks at that, because it was just like, I don't know what the published version was basically a first draft. I mean, I wrote that in 8 days.
That's crazy.
I changed everything except for the main characters, like changed setting, everything, story. We did it.
By the way, I would love to do that someday. Just like crank out an album in like 8 days. I feel like
it was. Yeah.
I feel like the next album is going to be at the same level of scope as this one, or like more so.
Cool.
But I feel like I know what I'm doing for the next like 3 things.
Right, and that was out of necessity too. Like it wasn't my ideal situation. I had done like 2 drafts, and then I wanted to get out of the book deal.
Right.
I couldn't get out of the book deal without giving all the advance money back in one thing. And I spent all the advance money. This was doing a lot of pills. And
the classic fulfill the deal book.
Right. Well, and then but then I was like, fuck. And then so I didn't just like do in like 4 months. I didn't write anything. And then finally, about like 8 or 9 days before, just blow it up. And I seriously, I think I might have slept 14 hours. It was the coolest, most exhilarating fucking thing I felt.
I came for your reading.
Yeah.
For the book, like right down the way, right?
Yeah.
Was that the Booksmith?
No. That was at the coffee shop at the Biz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
By the way,
I wanted to have the band play. John, my friend's band played. Yeah.
Your sign. So also a little factoid, which you don't know. You don't know. I think you'll appreciate this though. So you signed a copy of Blazed for me.
Yeah.
And
been an asshole move had I not.
Yeah. Well, we already know each other.
Not signing yours, dude. But thanks for coming out and buying a copy.
Well, so we know each other outside of this, and and I love you, and so your way of doing things has always kept me inspired. And so a little factoid, which this has not been said in an interview yet about this record. So again, this record costs like $30,000, right? And I'm not a fucking trust fund kid, and I'm not running that. Yeah, and
sorry.
So it's true. Like, my dad is a machinist that works like 12 to 14 hours a day to like keep supported growing up. My mom works in crop insurance. My grandparents like picked fruit and cotton. There's no money to draw from really as far as that goes.
And then you decided to become an artist.
Yeah, and I don't know if I decided. I think it was
well. At some point you decide. At some point you go, I'm all in.
Right. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, right.
You can't do half foot. I mean, again, like it's one of those things where I say it's like art isn't something you do when there's nothing else to do. There's art, and then there's everything else, and that's what complicates a lot of other things in your life, and you have to make some of those things work. But like this is the hardest thing you'll ever do.
Totally. And
living.
And so as far as making things come together for this record, I have a policy of paying everyone before they play music.
Cool.
So anybody that came to work on the record, I would pay them before they played a lick, because I'm just like, look, I kind of feel like you're going to play better if we just have this money thing just fucking happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so it would do that.
It's a good perspective.
Thanks. But to be able to do that, I drove people around, sometimes 60 hours a week.
Oh, yeah, you were doing the lift, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say the company on the interview.
Oh, right, whatever. You were doing one of those things where people have an app and they get you.
Exactly, yeah. And so, to be able to, and while I was doing that, Blaze was sitting in the seat like pretty much the entire time. At least for the first several months, for sure.
Cool.
So paying, like, it was like driving people 60 hours a week sometimes, doing all kinds of things to be able to stay awake.
Right.
And sometimes then doing like 12 to 15 hour days in the studio.
Right. Damn.
Yeah.
That's heavy. I feel like that was... Yeah, I mean, my books would be the one, just because I feel like there's the inspirational quality of like the artistic things that those people are trying. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's one of the things too. I think I mean, I haven't been in the room while you worked, but
right.
I think sometimes that's what I'm saying. Like I think we have this. We have
ask any of my ex-girlfriends.
I think we both can have like a sort of like fever dreamish kind of way of.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I mean, that's. Again, it comes in that, again, it is this idea that somehow going to college and getting your degree, which I went to college, but like getting your degree, and going out into the real world, having kids, there's definitely a level of, like, okay, I can respect that. Like, okay, but like, I mean, like, cool, you went to college basically colleges have become almost like vocational schools. They just funnel you in. I mean, they don't really teach you the humanities the way they're supposed to taught you anymore. All these things that actually provide people empathy and provide people a sort of structure to sort of like deconstruct how things should work or not work.
Well, that like an experience,
right? And so, but to like go out and step out, and this is again like just in general, and the people who are huge artists these days, whether in the music industry or writers, don't do us any service, or do a lot of people just a disservice because they don't really. There's very few that speak in artistic terms or really understand the notion of the sort of transcending. Art is transcendence. Art is the only space in culture that can make sense of the non-rational forces in life, which is love, grief, beauty, extracting meaning out of it. Art is that only space, maybe outside of religion, that can try to make some sort of sense of that. And it's not. It's devalued. Artists have been devalued for the last 50 years, and it's outside of. I mean, it's sort of be like it used to be. Idiocentric people, weird, idiocentric people would make things, and sometimes those things, hit into a big way into culture, and so. There was art, and then came maybe some fame. Now we have this thing where it's like, there's fame, and then the creation comes after art. It's this weird sort of thing. So I feel like when you make this decision to like go, fuck it, I can't do anything else. I can't be happy. I work jobs, you know what I'm saying? Like 9 to 5. Where it's like I can't do it. This is what I need to do. Like and have the actual guts to like go off that cliff and know that like in lean times you'll try to make it work no matter however hard to. I mean, it's one of the fucking that is courage to me. Whether or not people put pay respect to that or think that's noble. Again, we live in a world that completely really devalues a lot of art.
Right, and then with doing this how I've done it, I definitely have had to take into consideration the like art being devalued, right? So it's like
absolutely
because along the way everybody's like, hey, you're gonna make sure this is on this streaming service, this, and I'm like, not really my top priority.
Right.
And it's like, why? And I was like,
I love it. Like, all you fucking people come at me with like the PR advice, like, or what you think. It's like, no shit. I'll think about that once I get my vision. Fucking,
Well, the way I look at it as far as all that goes is, so the way that I'm handling the distribution for this record, at least in the U.S., I'm handling my own distribution. As far as all of that goes, I distributed the last record myself and got it into hundreds of stores. Good. And so then with this record, taking it to labels and then getting offered like a third of what the record actually cost to make for as far as in advance, I'm like, well, that's not going to cut it for me. And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to make a living off this record? Because this is my life. This is what I've decided to do. At some point, I need to at least do okay enough to make sure that I have the time to work on the next batch of things. Because there's a long list of things, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And
there's a lot of people also don't get that too. By the time your thing comes out, you don't want to talk about it all that much. And
that's
you
right.
certainly don't want to listen to it. You're like, I'm like balls deep in like the next 2 projects.
Totally, absolutely. And so as far as that goes, I figured out, okay, if I get it in X number of record stores, I figured out like after the cost of production, after the cost of this, after the cost of even like PR, like all that shit, I figured out, okay, here's my net amount. And I was like, if I sell even just like X amount of records in stores, like I have this much money to live on for the month.
Right.
And like obviously between the both of us, we have a lot of famous friends. And we both know that a lot of those famous friends don't actually totally make a living off of their art.
No.
And
dude, the percentage of people who do, you gotta be on. You gotta be on. Again, like I read an interview not that long ago with members of Grizzly Bear who on, in 2014 could have sold out 3 straight nights at the Warfield. I didn't have fucking health insurance, and they could barely pay their $600 a month apartment. I mean,
right.
Like there's a lot of cover because like people get press and they get media, and there's a sort of there's an image and a lifestyle put forth that is a little bit rooted in truth, but not really. I don't know anyone actually who doesn't who's just actually like really about all the famous people who know, unless they sort of capitulate Dwyer because he owns his record label.
Right.
That's why he's able to. OCs wouldn't be able to pay his rent. They might just be able to get by. Just doing a tour, but like he has Castle Face, and I think that takes care of that. But I don't know. Yeah. Most of the famous friends I know have a bartending job.
Yeah,
or sell drugs.
And then, and the ones that I know that really like pull it off, it's because they're not really chasing the same kind of like mainstream whatever, right? The way it's done in the mainstream. And so that's kind of what I modeled my way of doing things from like this record and forward. It's because it's like, all right, that way of doing things isn't covering shit for people, right? And so I'm like, okay, well then I'm just going to like as far as press and getting in this and getting in that, getting that, great. Like, people that are repping me, you guys handle all that. That's great. Right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to go ahead and focus on selling my vinyl records to my niche.
Right, absolutely.
Because that can pay my mortgage.
Absolutely. I mean, that's sort of it. I think that's, again, going forward, I think that's going to be more of a model of the future in the music industry. I think that was my whole thinking about going the route that I did. About being like 15 years too quick and didn't know what the fuck I was getting into. But, like, where, a label will get you to a certain point, but I think bands at some point are going to be like, this is probably the peak thing that I'm going to get unless we, like, really break huge, And I think they're going to cut out the middleman. I think they're going to take over their own fucking shit because, again, like, when you're, when you are sign those contracts, they're great. I mean, like, again, I feel like I'm working things backwards now. It's really weird because I'm now trying to do these things that most 22, 23-year-olds were doing at the time, and I was fortunate enough not to have to do that, and it's weird. But like, where, you're only making, they own the record. So you're making fucking, 20% off fucking each record sale,
Right. If I sell a few thousand and my net on that is $7, right, and like my mortgage is a couple $100 a month.
You have a mortgage?
I'm buying a house in Detroit in like a couple months.
Oh man! Again, yes. Did say time travel?
Yeah.
You were going to it's like what was the Polinick thing last time you hung out? Right?
Yeah.
Which was weird.
So it goes back to what I say earlier. Like, whatever I say I'm going to do, right, I always do it. It's my timeline.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm saying I'm just like, I can't even, like, that's just, I feel like it's just compressed. And not compressed, but like, you don't see someone for a while, and you're just like, I guess there's this assumption, I don't know, fucking, like, that shit's happening. You just don't talk to them anymore.
Yeah, so I'll be in Detroit as of October 15th.
Cool.
And then I'll be there, and then the record comes out, and then taking that first chunk of dough from the record sales and putting that as the down payment on the house. And
cool. It's a good place to move right now. It's not.
Yeah, the art and music scene is pretty amazing out there right now.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back to Hollywood as need be, like for 3 months at a time. If I start like doing music for a TV show or for a film or whatever it is, and because now I'm getting TV and film licensing deals, which is nice. So.
That's the Pretty soon, man. Gonna score like a Wes Anderson movie.
Oh, did you see Good Time yet?
What's that?
It's just a new. It doesn't matter, but
You were so excited, though.
I am excited because it was the last. It was like I mean, the last mainstream film I saw in theater was It, right? But as far as like a little less mainstream was it's called Good Time or Good Times or whatever. And
it's about the in New York, the 24 hours, right?
So good.
Yeah. Okay. I want to see that. Yes.
Yeah. And the score for that is fantastic.
Yes. I actually heard that about the score. The score. No, I mean like. Things like as we're getting close to the end here, like,
there's so much more to ask.
I mean, I think that like it's sort of again commendable. I think people can take that from you of like having that wherewithal. Where I feel like I don't know, like lately it's just like I don't know. Maybe it's just like the crew of kids that I came up with aren't here anymore or whatever. But like art, even the people that I know who are like making stuff, and I'm like, you're not passionate. I mean, you're passionate about it, I guess, to a sense that you make it. But like, I don't know. I get fucking excited. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, bring up the tapes. I wanted to write this book about that tour. I was on the tour of St. James Society and record the whole thing, and I just couldn't figure out how to make it work. Because one, I was like thinking of it in terms of strictly like. Got to be a rock and roll book about a band, having, sort of stay in that sort of category and kind of structure. But I was like, well, no one knows who the band is, and the band's not together anymore. Started to, like, transfer some of those tapes over. The first one I listened to was us basically fucking committing a felony in San Diego where we stole fucking painting from off the wall of this venue because we thought that somebody had stolen our friend's image and put it up as his own because it looked exactly the same.
Right.
And anyway.
But not being the case?
So me and TJ, who's the drummer, we stole it. The band didn't really know what was going on. And it didn't really matter because we stole it. To this day, I still think I do rip them off. But one of the girls in the band had taken a photo of it and posted on Flickr that we had the thing. And so when we got back to Austin, the venue was like, all right, well, you can send the thing back up and we'll press charges. That was the first thing I listened to. It was like, I got the thing on recording in my pocket.
That's fine.
And we're stealing the shit. But like, so what I noticed was like, there's no visual component. The tapes themselves can be ancient, old, a physical thing, but everything on those tapes, like this interview, is only exists in the present tense.
Right.
It can never exist in the past tense, even if we talk about things that age, just because there's no visual component to it. So I was like, holy shit, I can write this as a fucking... I can just transcribe the tapes now and write it as a journal like I was really there. Like, like it was just happening yesterday, and I could box it in with another narrative that's like, maybe, past tense or updated now, and, sort of box it in. I just blew my mind. So I was like, I can break fucking time. I can literally fucking, like, get the past and the present to exist without perception and reality, which are the two main constraints of how you believe in time. It was insane. So, like, I'm like, oh my god, it's, 2008, homies, we've been, like, fucking, we would have been, like, just getting into, like, every sort of fucking, we would have been, like, somehow breaking it down to, like, I don't know, fucking Sartre, Wagner, and, there would have been this, like, all this thing, and I was just like, no one gives a shit, and they're all looking at me like I'm fucking crazy now. These are all artists, but, like, I feel like that's sort of what's happened a lot was there's a lot of people who are making stuff, and I like their stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love some of these people, I love them, but they are very much sort of only attracted to the very superficial, to the superficial gratification of things, and they don't really...
I have a hard time relating to you if you haven't jumped off the fucking deep end.
Right. And I have a hard time relating to you if you think that art isn't like this encompassing sort of thing where it's like, where you don't think critically on things, where it's just like, oh, I see. At the reopening of MoMA, I went there, and it was like, oh my god, it was like fucking only like 6 people who were actually fucking paying attention to the shit on the walls. It's fucking insane to me, It was like, wow, art's become a sort of like, it's almost become like a a social destination other than a fucking like a life.
Yeah, it's like when I go to the movie.
And I'm not saying that to be doom and gloom suffering, but like,
no, I know.
But like again, it's like you got. I mean, like I don't know. Like I miss that kind of shit where it's like I miss being able to like talk about this stuff and go. But like again, I'm a radical about it, and also too like you said, like none of you motherfuckers have jumped in. You know, don't even. We all got one foot in each safe lane. You know, and you know maybe the fast lane.
No, of course. And you know, in the course of this project, and this isn't me like saying that I think I'm like better. It's just
no, absolutely not.
It's just different. When like somebody will be like, oh hey, I heard you play music. I play a little guitar, and they want to talk about it like it's the same thing, and I'm like, it's not the same.
You should meet my friend. He you know, he writes copy at this, you know, or whatever, and it's like, okay, I'm not again. I think I'm better, and I'm not downing it, but I think that's lost. I think that's happened culturally, like the idea of just like you know people sitting around like you know even fucking political discourse. It's like everyone's just around talking shit about Trump, but they don't want to have a fucking like critique of capitalism. Sure. They don't even know how to critique it. You know what I'm saying? They don't even get it. You know, they don't even understand that like they are now. They hate Trump so much that they are now defending, you know, these far right-wing establishment positions that the Democrats have brought us to, you know, and normalizing that. It's bizarre. It's fucking weird. It's just... Tell me, Joe.
Oh, I just got so relaxed. Are we talking about Trump?
Nietzsche would say, you know, like artists, you know, you know, scorched soul, they stare into the fucking abyss, and it's not this, like, dark and gloomy thing, but I just feel like there's no... People are... be or live as an artist, so they're not going to really care to talk about it. But again, it's something that I just feel like that's sort of part of the whole devaluation of it.
So, my experience in the last year or so, or year and a half, I was going to say, like, in the last, like, year and a half, and I feel slightly uncomfortable doing the like LA versus SF conversation right now. But that being said, I don't know. I have a theory. I think because I already made this thing that is pretty like just like grand and just like in your face as far as like how much went into it.
Right.
I think I've been really, really lucky that, I mean, obviously, like, you meet all sorts of people in LA, right?
Absolutely.
But I think the bulk of the people that I've ended up being around, whether they're people that are involved in film or art or photography or whatever else, are on top of their shit and passionate about it and getting it fucking done.
Right.
And,
it is good.
And that can like wax like poetic for a long period of time about their like fucking process and it not be stupid.
Well, right, absolutely. You just know, especially when someone talks about it. It's like, yeah, dude, you're a lifer.
And I think I've gotten good at sussing that out too. Right. So it's just like.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like when people show their true colors, when all of a sudden the fucking second question is after they find out. See, but you put out this album, or see, you wrote this book, is, you know, like,
how this up?